What is up, my dude?
Mr. Wes Briggs, good to meet you.
You too, buddy. Yeah, nice to connect face to face for once.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's right. I've only ever seen your profile picture. I don't think I've seen you on video or anything before.
No, yeah, that's like a lot of people in our space, man. It's funny, you meet people like this, like face to face, and it's like you're either exactly how I thought you'd be or nothing
Hmm.
like it. It's funny when you hear somebody's voice for the first time too. It's
Oh
like I
yeah.
did not expect that.
Okay, that I'm Irish.
Oh no, I heard your voice in the voice note. I already knew that. I'm just meaning
Okay,
with some
good.
people, you get on Zoom for the first time with somebody and their voice is all like really high and squeaky, or like
Hmm.
super low, or yeah, they've got like, a different accent. And it's like, I had no idea, man, because I've only ever seen written shit from you.
Yes, yes, of course. You create this voice in your head for different people, and then you actually speak to them for real, and they're somewhat different.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, it's good to connect.
Thank you. I'm drinking what I shouldn't be drinking, which is a late night coffee, because I just had a ridiculously heavy meal 10 minutes ago, and I'm about to pass out.
Oh
Like
yeah.
the
Yeah. Coffee
carb the
helps.
carb coma is kicking in.
Yeah. You need a little Irish coffee.
What 2 years ago, what I've done, I gave it all up. I said no more.
Yeah.
Uh, I loved alcohol, but it didn't love me back. And
That's
as I got into my got to 41, I was like, this like the juice is just no longer worth the squeeze. In fact, it stopped being worth the squeeze a long time ago. But at this point, it's unignorable, and that was it. I just
yeah.
said I'm done.
Just took a little bit to learn the lesson. Yeah. I kind
Yeah,
of did the
about
same thing
couple
this
of
year, man.
decades,
Yeah,
couple of
yeah,
decades.
yeah. Yeah.
You did
I
it
think we
too?
all got to go through the same thing. I'm at the same point, man. Like I'm at the point now where it's like friends invite us out, they'll be all drinking or whatever, and I'm the one sitting there sipping, fucking Kool-Aid or something. And I'm like, yeah, it don't bother me, you know?
Yeah.
The stuff it just ruins your sleep. And then, usually you just do a bunch of shit that you regret at the end of the day. So
Yeah, the waking up with the fear stage was mostly in my 20s. It's like, what did I say? What did I do? Who's pissed
oh
off at
yeah.
me today? I kind of got past that stage, but it was just a stage where, you have one beer and you've got a headache for 2 days afterwards. It's like, this just, it ain't working anymore.
No, that happened to me just the other night. Is probably the first time I had even a real beer this summer. And I
Hmm.
walked down to the pub just down the road from our place here, and I had two pints of draft beer. And the next day, man, I woke up feeling like just such garbage. And I'm like, I only had two beers. What the hell is wrong with me? But it just totally just drives it home that it's like, you don't really need it anymore,
Yeah,
honestly. Like it's,
there's that.
yeah.
And there's the fact that we're getting old too. That's also
I think
part of
that's it.
reality.
Yeah. Well, dude, back in the day, I'd go party till 3, 4, 5 in the morning and then get up at work for 8 a.m. and, go there with 2, 3 hours of sleep. And yeah, you'd be a little tired, but you'd be fine. Now, like you said, like you have one beer, I got a headache. I go to sleep, wake up the next day, I feel like I got hit by a bus. I'm like, what the hell happened?
And your 20s you used to laugh at all the old people who were lame and sucked too.
Dude, yeah, it was funny when I was younger, I used to be really into skateboarding and used to like
Hmm.
compete and stuff. And I remember some of the shop owners that we'd hang with. I remember thinking like, you're 30, like you should be so good by now. Like you've had like 20 years to practice. And now that I'm in my 30s, I'm like, I can't even touch the thing anymore. The last time I did, I broke my arm. And
You
it's like
competed.
you just don't bounce back and heal from it anymore.
You were a competitive skateboarder. Were you trying to turn pro or where did you go with this?
I mean, younger me was. That
Hmm.
was the aspiration back then. But no, I had a couple sponsorships and went pretty hard at it until I destroyed my ankle at 18. And
Hmm.
then that took me out for a couple years and just never really gained the momentum back into it. And
Yes.
so that's kind of where I got into marketing and entrepreneurship. Honestly, it was like I needed something else. The what do you call it? The masochistic nature of it. I need something else that's even harder. Let's go do this instead.
So like, did you have a Bart Simpson summer where you were just stuck at home in a leg cast and like trying to figure shit out on the internet?
Dude, totally. Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually no. It took me a couple years. I wish I had a cool story like that Instead,
Hmm.
I spent my years from 18 to 20 just hanging on the couch playing like Grand Theft Auto and stuff on my PS3. I didn't really do
Hmm.
anything special, but yeah.
I think with skateboarding, like, I mean, was only ever, I never had any aspirations. I was never that good, but I was like just a hobby skateboarder. Um, but it's like, you see people do amazing, amazing footage. And like, I think when you're young, what you don't realize is most of those guys are total cripples by the age of 25. Like, they're totally fucked. Way worse than other sports.
They're so broken. It's crazy. I had to have this discussion with a buddy of mine who was really big into football, and he was
Hmm.
like, "Football players are tougher." I'm like, "I don't know. You guys got pads. We fall into the concrete, and we get up and we go do it again and again and again and again and again. And like for some reason, you don't seem to learn. You just
Yeah.
keep going at it."
There's a certain personality type who does really well in skateboarding, and there's usually a heavy amount of sort of it's almost the best guys. It's a form of self-abuse. Like they are like the old
It
Catholic
is.
penitents with the whip, lashing their own back.
Oh yeah, man, 100%. Yeah. You know what though? That has served me very well when it comes to business because I just
Okay.
don't give up. You just stubborn-headed motherfucker. You
Oh, is it
just
like
have to
land the
push
trick,
it
land the
through.
trick?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think back now and it's like I mean having like, knee problems, ankle problems, back problems in my 30s and like having to go to like physio and massage therapy and all these other different things. And I look back
Hmm.
at what I was doing and I think about jumping down, a 10 stair or 14 stair. It, I like, dude, I think about doing it once now. And I'm like, if I even did it once right now, I would be in so much pain for days. And we would go at it for hours. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, just meat carcassing ourselves down these things for, 1, 2, 3 hours trying to get a 5-second clip. And I look at it now and I'm like, yeah, that's why my knees are shot.
Okay. So where do you actually get your start out in on marketing? What sort of pulls you into the world of, persuasion?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story actually. I ended up going to like the more traditional route. Ended up going to university for marketing, communications,
Hmm.
studied that. And when I went there, that was right towards the end of 2009.
Hmm.
And sorry, 2009, 2010, which was right after 2008 when the real estate market bombed out.
Ah,
And
yes.
my aspiration originally was I was going to get into real estate. I was going to be a realtor. And I'm like, well, market shit right now. I'll go to school, learn how to market and sell real well, and then by the time I'm out, the market will be on uptrend again. And while I was in there, I had a market research professor. Name was Patrick, and he was he was kind of funny. There was only 5 of us in this class, and so at one point he goes, "How many of you are actually going into market research as a career?" Nobody put up their hand, and he's like, "All right." He was a marketing consultant on the side. And so he goes, "How about we do this then? Because this is not like an elective course, it's a mandatory course so you have to take through and pass." He's like, "I'm going to teach you the bare minimum that you need to know about market research, and the rest of the time, I'm going to teach you shit that you actually need to know to be an effective marketer."
Oh, wow.
And we're all just like absolutely super cool. So, long story short, he pulls out these old Chet Holmes DVDs. You know who
Yes.
Chet Holmes is? Dream 100?
The Ultimate Sales Machine, Dream 100, that guy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So he pulls out his old box set of his like that. He's like, I paid like 3 grand for this set. He starts showing us these seminars. And
Locking the door before he starts playing the. I can't
yeah,
let the
yeah.
faculty members see me watching
No,
this shit with you guys. It's too
yeah. We were
controversial.
so grateful for it though, man. Honestly, like I didn't realize the gold. Like this was my original experience to like direct response and like that the more like old school, Dan Kennedy style marketing back in the day.
Hmm.
And so here I am, I'm sitting in the class and I'm still thinking about real estate. And he goes, "All right, I'm going to pause for a second." He goes, "You see the stadium full of people here." He says, how much money do you think they paid to be here?" And, of course, our limited worldview as students, we're like, I don't know, $50, $100, $200. He's like, every single person in this audience paid him $5,000. He's like, and there's over 1,000 of them there. And my mind starts doing the math and I go, holy shit, that's a lot of money in one day. And so I started to think, because my original criteria of success was thinking in real estate, if I can do a couple hundred a year, like I'm doing pretty good, you know. Coming from like sort of like lower income side of the tracks growing up. And so thinking like, that's to me, that was like the apex at the time. And seeing that, I'm thinking this guy just did like 5 million in a day. And thinking if he can do that, 500 grand is less than 10% of that. I'm targeting that on like an exceptional year. If he can do that, there's no reason why I can't do 50 grand in a day, which is 1% of what he's doing. And I'm like, I got to shift my mindset on where I'm going here. And
Nice.
that day forward, I started looking more and more into marketing, got into people like Neil Patel. Um, there was a couple of other guys. Steli FT was another one. These are the guys who originally founded Close.io.
Hmm.
And I started when I started going to work, I started listening to Neil and Steffi podcasts just on my way to work over and over and over again. And so I did the corporate route for about 5 years, which was good. A lot of people, they say like, you should just be an entrepreneur, don't go to school, don't go to work or whatever. School, I can see the argument for that one. It's a lot of money. You
Hmm.
spend the 4 years doing, you're going to learn a lot more. But the corporate route, especially in our space, my first job that I landed, my official first corporate job, was working in a very similar institute as like your typical high ticket sales organization. We did about 18
Hmm.
million a year. And so we had like the appointment setters and the sales staff inbound, and it was a high ticket training program. So programs that range between 5 and 25K. And so right off the rip, man, I started my career marketing for inbound leads to feed the sales reps and
Nice.
going to events and trade shows and stuff like that, trying to recruit people for that. So that was really cool because I got to see the inside of the sales process and marketing and how an effective eight-figure organization actually works. And
Yes.
so when people say like, well, you shouldn't get a job, you shouldn't go to corporate, I completely disagree with that. If you don't know what you're doing and you're a beginner, you should go work for somebody else because you're going to get paid to learn. And that is
Yes.
completely invaluable.
Yes. I totally agree. It's a gap actually in my sort of knowledge and experience. I've mostly worked in small business because I was in the construction industry. And I
Yep.
see when I work with people who have a background of working in corporate, those people just understand how bigger organizations operate and the actually the exposure to like processes. Because if you're like you said, if you're doing a large scale sales training and you've got to feed all these salespeople with leads every day, you have to have shit that consistently works and it has to
Yep.
be bigger. And that means you have to be organized. And then your typical kind of like, you know, self-diagnosed ADHD entrepreneur type doesn't know shit about organizing things. And they're just, in many ways, they're a
Yeah.
nightmare. They succeed often in spite of themselves, not because
Yeah.
of their special powers or whatever they fucking want to call it.
No, it's our bullheadedness. Go back to the skateboarding thing. It's like we win because we're gonna sit there instead of using a hammer or a nail gun, we're gonna use our forehead and we're just gonna fucking pound the drywall until eventually we break through.
Something like that, Jeff. But yeah, you bang on. I mean, I see that like I'm trying to, at this point, like kind of grow a little bigger and thinking about being on a team. I'm like, I don't know how to organize shit. And I see it with people who've got that corporate background. They just know because they've been team players before. And when you're not a
Yeah.
team player and you're trying to build a team, that's tough, It is.
It's hard because you won't be able to see how the pieces play together. It's also why like you see a lot of guys who come out of the military, right? Or sports, for example,
Hmm.
and they may not be the best marketers or the best business savvy people, but they always tend to do really well. And I think it's because they understand the dynamic of leadership and being able to work within a team so that they can do that. Right. And that's one of the
Yes.
things that I actually had to learn the hard way, even coming from the corporate route. It was like I seen the processes, but I was, again, because I was, individual skateboarder, I gravitated towards more individualistic sports. I tended just to do everything myself. And so it's part of the reason why I liked entrepreneurship at first, but it's only up until recently where I'm like, I can't do everything myself anymore. It's I have to work through people. And that's
Hmm.
basically the fastest way to grow anything, honestly. So that's been kind of my trend this year, actually. I've been binging Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time book, The Who
Yes.
Not How, 10x is easier than 2x. There's a few really good books around that. Um, yeah, it's all systems and processes. Even a half-ass system and process, I think will take you 5 times further than trying to just ad hoc shit all the time over and over and over again. Which that was a painful mistake I made early in my career, man. I did the whole paid media agency route. And
Hmm.
coming from the corporate realm and having worked with so many different people before, kind of dabble in anything. I did webinars, I did low ticket, I did VSLs, I did Facebook groups when they were popular. Like I've kind of had my hand in everything at this point.
Hmm.
So for the longest time, it was like, oh, this is what you're doing? Yeah, sure, I'll work with that. Oh, this is what we're doing? Okay, cool. I'll run that too. And it's like, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, yeah, the money's good, but you fuck yourself at the end of the day because you're contact switching all over the place rather than having a streamlined system. If you're only doing webinars, only do webinars. This is how you plug and play this thing. If you're only doing groups, you only do groups. Plug and play this thing. Let somebody else deal with the other shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at right now myself. It's just like there's been so many things I've dabbled in over the past 5 years, like coming out of construction and into marketing and having just a little bit of marketing and sales knowledge from using those skills inside the construction industry. Like, I have to learn all this shit. I have to learn it all. I've got to learn it all. And you do a bit of
Yeah.
everything and you don't really master any one thing. And I was like, oh, okay, this is no good. You can't do it all. You have to just pick a little, you got to pick a zone and you got to actually just like work to get, go deep on that zone. So this year,
Yeah.
like I've really said, okay, I have some level of competence in copywriting. I do not want to push to be one of the best copywriters because I just don't see that being, where my strength is. And I was like, okay, but I can use what I've done in copywriting to learn advertising and just focus on doing that. And that's what I've been doing now. And got to the point where like at this point now like 10, 12 clients were like there's so much fucking chaos and I've outgrown my green notebook and I have to actually get some real process into this shit or it's gonna all fall apart soon.
Dude, that's what would happen to me. I've never had a problem with selling, right? Like I
Hmm.
can go out. I mean, I did sales before I was, went to school. So I did sales doing that. And like, fuck, I was selling when I was a kid. Like people use the analogy like the Pokemon cards, but it's like,
Yeah.
no, I used to literally hustle like lunch money and Pokemon cards. And then in high school, it was cigarettes and like, I've always been selling shit, dude. And so my trouble was never in sales. So like when I was doing the paid media side, I would push, cap myself out, and then I couldn't take on anybody else. So I would stop pushing. And then eventually you have the natural attrition that falls off.
Yes.
And then I got to start ramping up to push again. And I just ended up doing this. And it's just a roller coaster of up, down for, that lasted for a couple of years. And like my overall net revenue has only done this since I started, but it's because I never had any process. And I kept trying to like ad hoc shit 24/7. And it's like, VSL, webinar, low ticket, let's do this, and this. But yeah, that's the one thing I can say is like get process in place quickly, even if it's just something as simple as like your onboarding and time to first value. You can get that
Hmm.
like that first little conveyor belt in process, that's going to help you a ton because now you're just into the maintenance and fulfillment side. And then that you still have to try to do, but at least that way, I can't remember who said it, but somebody said entrepreneurs will not grow into pain. And if you know that like onboarding a new client or taking somebody new on is going to be difficult and you're going to have a hard time fitting them in and fulfilling on that stuff, you won't sell. You won't create the content and you won't effectively grow. And so having that process to do so is at least going to help get that person to their first value and now onboard it into your ecosystem.
So can we just dig into that a little bit? How did you first off set the boundaries of like, this is what I will do, this is what I won't do? And decide, okay, this is my zone. This is the zone I'm staying in. How'd you do that? And then the second part is like, where did you start with the kind of rudimentary processes that have made you be able to grow, to keep growing, even when you've capped out your personal capacity to fulfill?
So for me, a lot of what I did was I fired a lot of people.
Okay, good.
I took no seriously like that's ended up what ended up happening is because I realized that what I was getting back for what I was putting in just wasn't effective. And so, you set the transition time and move the people over, help them find replacements or whatever, and, offboard them essentially. But from creating the process, all I looked at was I took the clients that were winning the best and what they were doing with the system that I wanted to move forward with, which right now is, DM ads and sell by chat and Instagram predominantly. Um, it's just looking what is the most efficient path that I can take a new client that fits these criteria from, your ICP, your ideal client person. Um, and then trying to remove all of the friction points and limitation to get them from paid client to we're rolling, right, we're getting into to scaling at this point.
Hmm.
And a lot of it was just knowing the process, I guess. Like, I know what I have to get done for each person, so now it's, I mean, I don't know really how else to put it. I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but this is just the way that I do it. And I just look at each individual like node or pillar and just attack that. So say it's something as simple as like onboarding into Business Manager. Well, how do I make sure that they're giving me the right access that I need? I can get media buyers or my team the access that they need. And how can we do this in as few strokes as possible, so to speak? Right. And so you basically just take that frame and apply that to every step along the way. And then it's just constant iteration. There's so many times, man, where I've made a process and thought, this is it. This is the last process. And then I go and create a new one. And I'm like, shit, there's a better way now. Now I can see how I can bridge these two together and make this even more efficient. And so I think one thing that I learned the hard way towards the end of last year is instead of just always planning and like people say like well if I had to cut down a tree and I had 6 hours to do it, I would sharpen my axe for 5 hours.
Hmm.
I think there's some merit to that, but you're also never going to cut down the tree if you don't swing the fucking thing. So you, you're going to learn a lot more about cutting down a tree by swinging the axe than you are by sharpening it. And it's the same thing with marketing and process and sales and anything else. And for me, creating process, I'd always avoided it and tried to like learn about it and not do it. But you're never going to figure it out, I guess, until you take the steps to just start going through it. And it's going to
Yeah.
suck. I mean, you're going to make mistakes, shit's going to break, and then you just go fix it and figure out, okay, what broke? Why did it break? How can I do it differently next time? And you just learn.
Yeah.
I wish there was like a fancy script, but like there isn't. It's just like I said, dude, drywall, forehead.
Have you built a team now? Are you able to delegate quite a lot at this point?
So for me, because I've always operated super lean right now, I'm still working through contractors, which is a pro
Hmm.
tip for you. If you're worried about bringing on like team members and having to come up with like a monthly net every month to pay a team, just having like trusted contractors that that you're like, hey, can I farm this out to you? Here's what I'm willing to pay. This is the net margin. Will you take this on? Right. And then so you're acting more as a project manager than you are, necessarily like a strategist, a media buyer, a consultant, and all these other things. And so I tend to keep key personnel in, near me so that I can say, hey, I have this job that needs done. I have this and I have this. And that allows me to stay super, super lean. Right. And then also
Nice.
know too the quality of the work that is going to come back because I know they're real experts in their field.
Nice.
Yeah.
When you actually putting together projects, and I'm sorry we're getting into the weeds of like nitty-gritty stuff, but it's good to like, sometimes you don't know. This stuff is really opaque. Like people don't
Yeah.
talk about this shit, and I think it's really good to find out how people do stuff. Like, how do you go about actually then putting a project together? Because a lot of people in our industry are kind of cagey about pricing and things like that. Do you have an idea when someone comes to you about like, hey, because it's almost like putting a construction project together, like of, hey, this is what I can put together, this is how much margin I need to make it, and this is going to be how much the package is, and here's a little bit of headroom in case things get screwed up along the way. Is that the way you do it? Almost like a construction project?
Very similar, actually. Yeah. I look at, and I mean, having the background that I have too, coming through, and I mean, this is speaking for me, not necessarily for everybody else, but I know copywriting, I know design, I know tech, implementation, automation, wherever. So if I can't find somebody to do it, I can jump
Hmm.
in and just do it. quickly. I don't like doing that at this point. If all else fails, if I've underquoted a project, I can at least jump in the weeds and just do it, learn from it, figure out, okay, next time I need to quote higher. And again, it's forehead drywall. It's just really like learning from the mistake. And yeah, so I look at like, oh, that's the other part too, is when you have people that you work with consistently, you kind of start to learn what their price ranges are as well. And so I wouldn't look at it as like, they're somebody's overpaying for what they're getting or anything, because you're either going to pay that to your team and take more home in the business, or you're going to pay somebody else to do it. You're still delivering the same end product, and you're still managing, and you're still performing the service at the end of the day. Like if you look at a general contractor, for example, there's a lot of general contractors who will take a full renovation job or a full build job, but they don't do plumbing, right? They're going to go find a plumber. Like they're going to find a local plumber that they've worked with before and say, "Hey, I
Hmm.
need you to take over this job. When can you be here?" Right? Same with electrician, whatever, and then they'll handle the part that they specialize in. So, which for some is literally just the planning. Some of them don't even do anything. I had one guy who did that. He literally was a luxury home builder, and all he did was source the talent. That was it. He laid out the plan and said, "Here's what I need you guys to do," and then he coordinated all the people coming in and out, and that was his job. And that guy made fucking millions doing that, and
Hmm.
did fantastic work too. Clients never cared.
No, they don't. They just care that it gets done. I mean, people
Yeah,
talk about like, big fees being paid for corporate consulting and why would they pay that? And it's like they have a problem, they have money, and they want the problem to go away. So they pay. It's that fucking
yeah,
simple.
it is that simple. And so that's the other thing. Like, I find it so funny in our space that there's such a resistance to coaching and consulting nowadays,
Hmm.
and I understand why. I get it. There's all the you don't pay guarantees where people still paid, and they promised the world, and they got left holding the bag, and oh, there's just so much shit. But at the end of the day, like it really is as simple as, if you have a problem or you want an outcome, and somebody is doing the thing or they've already done the thing that you want, just go find them and offer to pay them and get them to tell you what to do, because it's like, I got a funny story about this. So when I was in corporate, I watched, it was Dan Henry's 30-day agency webinar, like
Hmm.
way back in the day. And I was already running Facebook ads. I was running almost $1 million a year annual budget, managing a
Okay,
marketing
wow.
department for six divisions. Yeah, financial planning, real estate, all sorts of things. And so I looked at him, and he had this vibe about him back then. I'm like, this is just some like punk little kid. And I'm like, he's doing it, and he's doing like 100 grand a month or whatever. At least that's what he was claiming at the time. I'm like, well, if he can do it, I can fucking do it. And so I went through this webinar and looked at all the things he was doing. I thought, I can do that. So I started effectively doing that. I quit my job, went out and started doing media buying for local people, realtors, basically whoever I could get to pay me at the point.
Hmm.
What I always look back on now is it took me probably 18 months to really crack it and figure out all these things like process, ad design, templates, frameworks, all of these things. And I look at it now and I'm thinking the program was 997, and that could have saved me 18 months of headache. And so my ego back then wasted me 18 months of time when I could have just pulled out my credit card and paid $1,000, and that's where I look at that now and like that really is a cheat code. Are you going to get burned? Probably. Yeah, you're going to
Hmm.
hire the wrong person sooner or later. It's going to happen. That's just part of business. You look again, these corporate consulting people, they've got a problem they need solved. Guaranteed they're going to hire the wrong consultant sometime who's going to give them bad advice. They don't close up shop and go, I'm never hiring consultants again.
Yeah, we need to hire two consultants.
No,
Oh
some
no,
of them
we
will do
we need to
that.
hire three consultants and see where we can, where they
Yeah.
can meet in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. We want to see like, if we hire three of them, okay, that'll be like 50 grand. And let's see, hopefully two of them land on the same one. If all three of them do, then maybe we're going to hire a fourth. And we'll go to an outside consultant now with a different company and see how they land on it. And it's kind of crazy. That's actually pretty big money what those guys do. But
You talked a few minutes ago about focusing on Instagram DM ads and Instagram as a platform, and that's one of the things I actually spotted in your post recently that you've been just kind of saying to people, "Hey, you're not paying enough attention to Instagram. Organic reach is better there." And just can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing and why it's so important to you right now to focus on Instagram?
Yeah, so it's a mix of Instagram and YouTube. And I wish somebody would have told me this earlier in my career because I didn't realize the benefit of the two of them as I do now. If you look at something like Facebook, for example, Facebook's a really good intimate platform. You have your 2 degrees of separation, everybody's on there. It's good to network. But when you make posts, it's almost more like an email list than it is a channel for growth. It's very rare that your stuff is actually going to go out to people who don't already know you. And of course,
Yeah.
there's strategies where you can farm in groups and you can make the value post, the Sam Ovens long form posting group, try to get people to your profile or whatever. Um, but your reach is so limited and it sure as shit does not compound. Like, I mean, I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars off of Facebook organic and it it works. It does. It's a great place to get started, honestly. But you cap out. Like you can only grow so much on that platform, and then your reach is just limited. And so at that point, you either have to make a decision. Am I going to go into ads or am I going to go to organic on another platform? But if you simply just start on the other platform, you're going to be way farther ahead than if you try and grind it out on Facebook. And so things with Instagram, for example, you don't have a limit on terms of how many people you can reach. If you and this is purely speaking organically here, but if you try and make a post and it goes viral, you could reach millions of people. That is never going to happen on Facebook. It's not. Now there's reels and things like that you can post there. It just doesn't have that same translation effect. Like they're not going to start following you and start engaging with your organic content on Facebook now, at least not from what I've ever seen. Maybe there's
Hmm.
some, there'll be somebody watching this that goes, oh, actually, but just in general, I don't see it. And so it's the same with TikTok and YouTube, where they're growth centric platforms. Even Twitter and LinkedIn are getting to this point, but where you can reach people outside of your existing network and continue to grow those personal brands. And so one of the reasons why I love Instagram is because it mimics a lot of the same properties as Facebook, where you have more of that intimate relationship with your followers, with your audience, yet you can still run ads from it. Whereas Facebook, if you have the professional profile, you have the ability to run ads to your followers and whatnot. But with with how touchy Facebook compliance is and shit getting banned, I would hate to have my personal Facebook go down because of, one of the value posts that I posted. I'll leave that in the organic side of things. But
Hmm.
with Instagram, so like you think of basic ads, right? Like what's one of the number one things that you typically have going is retargeting. So with Instagram, you can retarget virtually anything. Somebody who sent you a DM, somebody who's visited your profile but hasn't followed, somebody who's viewed some of your organic content. And so you can have really effective middle and bottom of funnel campaigns with basically effectively organic as the driver. Now, I don't advocate to go only organic because I think if you're spending time to make content, you should be putting a budget behind it anyways, or I don't know what the hell you're doing making content because content ain't free. People think, well, organic's free. It's like, no, it's not. You got to pay for an editor or you're editing it yourself. And if you're editing it yourself, you are paying for an editor. It's you and you suck.
Yes.
So you're paying for it one way or another, right? And so you should be putting at least 10, $20 behind a piece of content. That's going to get it to reach more people. When it's reaching more people, they're going to give you pretty quick feedback on whether or not on how it's performing. They're going to follow you, they're going to tell you you suck, whatever's going to happen, and then you can iterate based off of that. So it's organic at hyperspeed, essentially. The other thing that I really like Instagram for as opposed to Facebook is there's a culture around DMs, right? If you think about, having run low ticket or lead gen or webinars or anything like that, right? What is the end goal of those campaigns is to have a conversation, right? You run a webinar to book calls, unless you're doing the 997, course sale thing, which nobody's really doing anymore. VSL book a call, even low ticket ascension models. It's the end goal is to get into a conversation with somebody
Hmm.
and having having seen all of the models intimately, like having run multiple different kinds of VSLs, having run multiple different low tickets and stuff, those models are great at scale. But if for the smaller, like leaner, more agile business owner, it's really tough to know who you're bringing in until you've spent thousands and thousands of dollars, And so, like, if you're looking at a webinar, for example, or a book a call or whatever, you've got your opt in, you see the email come in, you see the name come in, but that's all you have to go off of. You have no idea who this person is. Whereas with a DM campaign, you see exactly who the person is. They're talking to you in real time. You can judge the quality of your campaign in real time. And so when you start tracking if you, I've got a more advanced way of doing this, but if you start tracking what they're responding to based on the keywords or the messages that they're sending you, you can track that back in first party data back to the ad. And so you see, especially if you're tying this into a CRM, but you're going to see which ads are effectively driving the best quality leads and the best quality customers without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to now start reassessing and testing and all of these things. And so I started looking at what people were doing, with Hyros. Hyros is great, but it's expensive, and it also factors in a lot of first party, like day one data where it's we want to look at what is this immediate touch point and what's driving the sale the fastest. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're missing a big part of the picture. One of the things, so coming back to the corporate side, is one of the things that we used to do in corporate. One of my jobs was to break down each one of our marketing and sales channels. And so we had different ways that people would pay. We'd have, government funding, self-funding, and then payment plans. And so we would break down source, payment type, geographical area, and then see what is the average sales cycle from first contact to paid, like paid customer. And then we would try and see, how can we get more of that? If we need more sales over here, we need more, we need to bump up March, for example. Okay, well, this is our fastest sales cycle, so let's put some more dollars here. What I noticed very quickly is that what was typically our fastest, shortest window was not our most profitable. Is that it was the longer ones tended to bring us more people and make us more money. And so those more like direct to sale stuff, it's like, yeah, there's a shorter feedback loop. But if you're focusing only on that, you're leaving a ton of money on the table. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So your process at this point, when you're actually, and this is you're treating Instagram not just from the point of view of like just running cold ads like people would do typically on Facebook. You're treating it from the point of view of, okay, I'm just pumping up the distribution on things that most people would see as just content, and then just using that as a icebreaker to get conversations going. Is that correct?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does
So
that mean you
there's
run your traffic to Instagram exclusively, or do you also run it out to Facebook too?
almost exclusively to Instagram. I haven't quite figured out why, but now I'll run Facebook as a retargeting segment
Mm-hmm.
after I've already, validated that it's a quality traffic source. What I've seen through multiple clients who are big on Facebook, like, well, we do well in our groups, we do well, organically. But the Facebook messaging just quality seems to be about 10 times lower than Instagram as a whole. And to the point where like I'm amazed that these people exist in our society and are still alive. Like it's really bad. And so now I'm at the point now where again, head drywall. Um, I don't run Facebook Messenger ads anymore. I just tell clients, I'm like, look,
Okay.
if you want to do it, feel free, but like I'm not doing it because you're going to waste your money, and here's why.
All right. This is super interesting. And because there's some of the uh, segments I work with in things related to beauty where it's very female centric. And I know
Yep,
those women are some extent on Facebook, but we know they're all on Instagram. They're all on Instagram. My
yep,
wife, my mom, my sister, all my female relatives. They don't give a
yep.
shit about Facebook. Kind of, maybe my mom's generation do a bit more, but my sister's generation, my wife, no way. They're all on Instagram.
It's such a pop platform. They may not check it as frequently as most people do with Facebook. Like Facebook people log in constantly. They are using their Messenger app. So like if you can get the right person into Facebook Messenger, you will be able to have a more direct one-to-one conversation with them just based on the fact that most people use Messenger as an SMS at this point,
Hmm.
whereas Instagram, they don't. I wish Instagram would bridge that over. That would be phenomenal. For whatever reason, at least today, they don't. Um, but Instagram also has a DM culture around it, where it's like there's a share button baked right into the content. There's response, whatever you call it, shortcuts right on your stories where you swipe up and just shoot the creator a message. And listening to Adam Mosseri talk about it, he's the CEO of Instagram as a division, and he was talking that that's one of its primary purposes is sending a cold DM. He was saying is very much like quid pro quo, like you don't do it, like you'll get black sheeped for cold messaging somebody. It's socially unacceptable. Yet he said from the story standpoint, or if you're sharing content with somebody, it's totally okay. And so that's one of the reasons why right now, at least, is their biggest organic algorithm amplifier is people sharing your content. And so if you're sharing it with them, with their friends, family, whatever, that's actually what's going to cause the content to go viral. And it's all because of what he was saying is that they have that more intimate relationship with direct messages, having those sharing those moments with people. And so that's kind of what drove me into exploring that more was I need to focus on that because I can take a sales angle from that. And you can automate a lot of it too, which is also really fun.
So just to kind of get sort of a little bit tactical with this at the moment, you're running an ad on Instagram. The CTA is click to chat, and they're going straight through into the Instagram messaging
So
platform.
have you ever seen it's funny actually how this has shot up in popularity recently if you're on Instagram. I see so many people doing this, even people in our space. We've been doing this for years, by the way, but seeing it catch on like it's like wildfire now. Almost every creator you see will, they'll talk something organically and they'll say, comment, follow below, and I'll send you the resource. You remember the good old two-step?
Yeah, the
Right
two
from
step.
our industry, dude, it's
Yeah.
paid two steps leading to a cold conversation with people. And you can do this warm bottom of funnel to your own followers, whatever. Now, that's the tactical way to do it. The strategic approach is what you're saying, who you're targeting, what you're giving away, and then now how you frame that conversation. And so that's really where we come in and focus on because anybody can there's no secret sauce to running a DM ad, dude. Anybody can come in and be like placement, Instagram, Target, Messenger, whatever, and it's like that's not where the secret sauce is. The secret sauce is in the strategy from what am I saying? Who am I addressing? What is their pain point? What am I going to give them? And now how are we directing this conversation on the back end? And then when
Where do
you
they go
when you line
next?
up those pieces, dude, it is killer. Because you see these ads out there where they're like attention coaches and consultants. It's kind of a piss poor ad, honestly. And if you
Hmm.
say like, how would you like to improve your onboarding process so that you can add an additional 40 to 50K a month in recurring monthly revenue? Here's how we did it. Here's what we did. You talk about it, and then towards the end of it, you say, "Hey, I'll give you the total play by play of what we did to increase our onboarding, comment onboarding, or DM us onboarding, with the link below, and I'll send it right over to you." And then so you go into the DMs, and they come and you say, "Okay, cool. Here's your thing," and you respond back. So, what are you currently doing for onboarding? Right? Or what kind of agency do you run? What kind of ads do you run? Who do you typically work with? You have some kind of qualifying question to get them moving down the sales process. And a lot of people
Hmm.
fall off, sure, but a lot of people engage. And now you've just shortcutted all the bullshit of somebody having to watch your webinar, buy your low ticket thing, attend your 5-day challenge. Like you think of how many as marketers, all those fucking friction points that we put into place for somebody, man.
Yeah.
And it's in the name of qualifying. But like if you just speak to them the way they need to be spoken to in the front end and get the right person raising their hand and engaging with it, it works pretty well.
Yeah, the ultimate goal of all this is to get people to have conversations where they're talking about the thing that you want to sell and they actually are genuinely interested to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's funny because with these DM placements too, by the way, they're cheap. So, the CPMs you'll run on a purchase or a sales campaign, you're looking at 50 to $100 CPMs. Even for lead generation, you're typically between 20, 30, sometimes as high as 40, 50, depending on your niche and targeting and
Mm-hmm.
where you're running the ads. With with these engagement ones, the highest I've seen is 20. I mean, I've had CPMs that are as low as like $4, $5.
Damn, that's crazy. Okay, I
Yeah.
need to try this. I need to try this. You
Yeah,
try
well,
this
it's
quick.
why a lot of our clients that we're doing this for, they're getting 10, 20, 30x returns on their ads. I know people see the stuff that I'm posting on Facebook and they think that I'm just gassing it up and talking shit, but it's oh yeah, sure, yeah, you're just sharing your winners. It's like no, like it's this stuff works. And then you can see why now because when you're calling out the right person, engaging them in a conversation, and then yeah, you're booking them on a call. And then when you get them on the call, you diagnose the problem, show them what they need to be doing instead, which they have the fucking problem because they just opted into it on the front end. And now as long as you're the type of person who can actually help them, you just make them a reasonable offer to help them.
This is, yeah, it's condensing a lot of shit and cutting out the middle, right? Of stuff
Yeah.
that maybe is legacy. There's a lot of cargo culting in marketing. Like,
Hmm.
I'm doing this because my guru told me to do it. And then why is the guru doing it? Because their guru told him to do it. And back to fucking granddaddy's generation,
Yeah.
because they did it at the county fair 50 fucking years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And they realize that nobody goes to the county fair anymore. I see that all the time. And that's where I find the school group thing kind of comical a little bit,
Hmm.
where it's like, I see the value in community and I see the value in groups and things like that. But the problem with it, and this is something I learned from Alan Sultanic, and he
Hmm.
was saying that, and honestly, this is part of the basis for why I run things the way that I do, by the way, is the influx and overflow of content and AI driven content is people's attention spans are just dog shit. And
Yeah.
so it used to have people's attention spans, I think it was back in the 1980s, 1990s, or whatever, were, 30 seconds long. Fast forward to 2020, they're about 7 seconds, 5 seconds. Nowadays, that I see it in our content, that same attention span now is like 1 to 2 seconds. It is so unbelievably short. And so this is where I look at things like trying to grow organically is a nightmare. But it doesn't mean that people won't engage with stuff. You see the same people who will binge watch a Netflix series in an entire weekend. It's not a lack of focus, it's a lack of desire and overwhelm. Once they find something they like, they'll go into it. But if you're trying to grow organic and your shit's getting like 50 impressions, put some budget behind it, and then you can pull them into sort of more of an echo chamber, if you will, where now you're the one controlling the flow of it. Whereas groups, I don't see that. School a little bit because you're in your own area, but then people just don't go there. They don't sign into it.
People don't go there unless they're actively looking for something. They don't by default just show up there like they do on Facebook and Instagram. They're going there with intent, and you have a lot of work to do to create the intent for them to
Yeah,
show up. Whereas with Facebook and Instagram, the platform is often doing that for you.
it's
And
already there.
even with the thing about like the attention spans, it's like, are people's attention spans getting shorter? Are humans getting dumber? Maybe. I don't want to get into a eugenics kind of conversation.
That's another
Although,
interview.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll have that conversation inside my head, maybe not unrecorded. Maybe after we stop recording, we'll have that conversation. But
yeah,
just the fact that you're just getting hit so much, so we're all getting hit with so much shit all the time. Our default response now is pretty much no to everything. Like, leave me the hell alone, until every now and then you see something like, oh shit, and just got something will really grab you by the neck within the first 2 seconds. And then you have that time dilation effect where it's like 15 minutes past, like, oh, this is really good. I'm really enjoying myself. I'll keep watching.
absolutely. And that's one of the things that I'm really starting to get invested into YouTube from a platform, not from an acquisition channel though, but from a nurturing platform. Because if you find somebody you like on YouTube, you'll start to binge it. And so sort of our meta play here that I'm exploring right now is linking Instagram as a traffic driver and then YouTube as a bottom of funnel nurturing tank. So very similar before, where you had your ads to VSL to webinar and your email list was the nurturer. Instead, this way, it's Instagram is sort of the main content pusher where you're going to get the volume from, and then YouTube is the one that's going to nurture them, change their beliefs. You've got that long form content now to convert them over. And don't really have any data on that yet. That's something new that we're exploring, but it's very very interesting because I don't think people's focus has changed. It's just what they have to be more selective now because there's just too
Hmm.
much. There's this old saying I heard a while back where they were saying, there's so many restaurants opening and closing in New York City that you could not eat at every single one of them in your lifetime because they are opening and closing at a faster rate than you could possibly consume. And it's the same thing with content. Like there's even in your very specific niche, there's so much content that is being pushed out there on such a daily basis that it is impossible to consume all of it, let alone action
Hmm.
it, let alone meaningfully engage with it.
Yes. And there's that whole kind of thing where, the sort of supermarket aisle effect where there's 20 different types of jam. You're just like, oh, screw this. I can't deal with this shit. And I noticed when I go to YouTube for like entertainment, and I haven't watched TV in years now. If I want to watch some sort of media entertainment, it's almost always just watch something on YouTube. And
Mhm.
there's infinite choice, and I go back to the same five or ten people all the time because I know what I'm getting, and it's like fucking McDonald's. I'm going to eat that burger. I'm going to eat those
Yeah.
fries, and they're not going
Yeah.
to be amazing, but I'm not going to get food poisoning.
Oh, yeah, well, that's the thing too. You find a new creator, you start watching it, it's just like, oh, fuck this. I don't like this guy. And a lot of it's personality driven too on YouTube, which is kind of cool, but it's the impression. Like start to build the habit, and that's what these creators are doing with you, is you're watching them because it's consistent. You're starting to build a relationship with the creator, and then they're really the sort of meta play here is what they're doing is they're downloading their belief system onto you. And so the more you watch them, a lot of people don't even realize that this is happening, but you start to hear the things that they're saying. And this is why, if you talk to any sort of branding experts or messaging experts, they will say have a handful of core stories and a handful of core values and just drive those things home over and over and over and over and over again. Like you're going to get bored shitless of them before your audience is. But it's if you're constantly switching it up all the time and just, one day I'm over here, one day I'm talking about this and this and this, like nobody knows what to follow. And I think that's okay in the beginning when you figure out what your thing is. But once you figure that out, you need to be consistent on it over there. And I think the other thing, man, that I just wanted to touch on really quickly is one of the reasons why the ads and the content system that we do work so well is you see all these guys out here, they're making claims and guarantees. We're gonna, 10x your business or you don't pay. We're gonna give you 100K a month agency or whatever. Instead of doing that, we take the approach of it's just like, look, it's the old Frank Kern model, right? Help people, or prove to people you can help them by actually helping them. And so it's like, here's value. Want more value? DM us this keyword and we'll give you more value. And then when we get them into the DMs, it's like, hey, would you like more value? And so the whole way, it's just like, if you ever watch Family Guy where he goes by and he's like, ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy. You're just like leading them down the trail, into the sales conversation. And like some people, they fall off obviously, but it overcomes that skepticism. Like we've ran ads too, and like you see this people calling each other grifters in the comments, like, oh, another coaching grifter, or get off my feed, whatever, blah blah blah. It's like, well, if you're just giving somebody value, you don't tend to
Wes,
see that.
I lost the last 20 seconds because my wife tried to call me. I gotta go answer the door. Can I come right back to you?
Yeah, yeah, sounds good, man.
Just a sec. Hey, sorry about that.
Oh, all good, man. All good. I get it. I work from home too, so my
Yeah,
doors always get knocked on.
gotta get myself an office. We just got into this place 3, 4 days ago, but it's happening soon. Um, with you, what you're doing, are you actually approaching this from the perspective of automating a lot of this stuff, or do you, in the end, when people get to the conversation part, is there a team of appointment setters just in Instagram DMs rather than on the phones?
So there's three ways that we can sort of spin this. We have appointment setters. We have an AI appointment setter, which is really
Hmm.
cool. It actually beats a lot of human setters. There's
Okay.
downsides to it in that you can't rely on it exclusively because of Instagram's bot limit windows. You've got 24 hours now. I don't know if you remember the mini chat fiasco where people were, oh, people built all these mini chat lists back, a few years ago, and it was going wild. And mini chat was great. You had like 90% open rates on your broadcasts. And then Facebook went, yeah, you know what? You've got 7 days. Somebody opts in, you've got 7 days. And then that lasted for about a month. And then they were like, you know what? No, you've got 24 hours. And so by the time somebody messages you, you've got 24 hours. What used to happen was if the lead or contact interacts with you, you get another 24 hours. Now you got 24 hours unless they
And that's for any
re-opt in.
automated system.
Any automated system doesn't matter whether you're using ManyChat, Go High Level, Flow Chat, whatever the newest tool on the block is right now. We predominantly use ManyChat and Go High Level depending on the sophistication of the client. Um, I prefer Go High Level over ManyChat. ManyChat has a couple of pros, but it's very limited in terms of what it can actually do. Whereas Go High Level, you're tied right into a CRM, which gives you
Hmm.
access to so many more features, which is super
Yes.
cool. Um, but yeah, like that's really it. Like it's using automation or AI. You can use just human capital, like just an appointment setter, but getting that speed to lead is important, right? Especially with something like Instagram DMs because it's not like Messenger where people are not checking it every few minutes. So you gotta capture them right away. And I've seen people struggle with that. If if you run ads, you'll have clients who are like, "Well, these leads are bad quality," and then you go see, and it's like, "Well, no shit, you took 36 hours to respond to them."
The classic lead gen problem. Yeah. Your
Yeah,
leads
I
suck
wouldn't
and
call
so
you
do
back
you.
either.
You didn't
Yeah,
call the fucking lead. You never
yeah.
called them.
How can they be good? Like they're not just gonna walk in and dump a bag of money on your table. Like you got to
You
do
have
the
to talk to
work.
them first.
Yeah. And so one of the things we did was whether it's AI or an appointment setter, we would use automation to automate the first handful of exchanges. And so typically that's like, hey, you want this thing, cool. Here's the thing, whatever the qualifying question is. And then with Go High Level, it's kind of cool. They have this feature called Conversion AI or Conversation AI, and it can actually read the context of what the person has said, and you can drop them into different buckets. And so one of the ones we've been using recently was from Dan Martell. He said, are you here for the content or are you here because you got a business to grow? And love that one because it's like, well, are you just here for the free shit or do you actually want some help? And so a lot of people will say just free shit, which is fine. We put them in a different bucket and we don't notify the setter. When the ones who come back and say, yeah, I've got a business to run, immediately we send a ping out in Slack. All right, setter, jump in, take over. And so what it's doing is it's eliminating a ton of friction for the setter because they're only focusing now on their sort of more middle of funnel, if you will, in the sales process, the leads that have already indicated now, I am this person. And so it's an automated filtering system.
Loving this, man. This I can see this being actually like so like applicable to two specific people who've come to I'm working with already. And we have exactly these problems. Like one of them is like an agency, I'm consulting with them, they're serving multiple clients, and we're getting them the leads, but we just have a problem at the point of contact with the client where there's training issues, there's communication issues, there's ego, there's I hate my boss, so I'm not going to do my job properly issues, that those
Oh
kinds of
shit.
all the human issues that come up in businesses. And you can't get away from because that's what normal everyday businesses are like. There's all this personal shit
Yeah.
going on. And it's like the more you have to let your client hold the sales process, the more they're going to hate it and the more they're going to blame you for it. So like the later in the conversation that you can hand that lead over to the client, the better things are generally going to go because you can control more of
Yeah.
shit.
So the one of the things that I love the most about it too is that you can tag. So remember, I was talking about the keyword tracking. You can
Hmm.
track based on what they said, and if you set it up properly, you could track it back to the ad. You can track a number, how many leads came in that hit the qualification standpoint. So now you can track how many, not just leads and conversations came in, how many qualified leads came in, how many freebie seekers came in based off of that keyword. Talk about ad optimization.
Okay. I'm loving it.
It's so the other thing I'll say too is with the AI setter, it's so funny because humans have all of these emotions, when it comes to sales. They're like, well, I don't want to follow up, I don't want to bug them, I don't want to be seen as a pest, or I don't. AI doesn't give a shit. It is always closing. It is always trying to move forward into the next stage of the process. And because it's doing that, it does it very well. The only limitation of it, like I said, is that 24-hour window. Before that 24-hour window, honestly, you probably could have fired an entire setting team and kept one junior salesperson to do follow-ups, and you would have been fine. And it's too bad. Maybe that'll change at some point, or maybe there'll be a workaround somehow. But it
Hmm.
works so well because I see setters, they take too long to respond. They get busy, they get sick, they have to sleep, you know? Where an AI can field 100 conversations at once, all simultaneously. It has no emotion, it doesn't take time off, it doesn't get sick. It is always following the script. It's not going off script. Like it is doing exactly what it needs to do. It's following the framework and it's moving them to the next stage. The only thing is sometimes it misses some of the context that you might not fully understand. But honestly, human setters do that too, from what I've seen. So
Yeah,
it's yeah,
100%.
it's crazy. Like it may not be like, if you were to compare one to one, would a human, like good human setter outperform AI? Absolutely. But how many good human setters do you have? How many conversations are you fielding? And sometimes just that speed to lead and consistency through following the process is going to outperform a team of, I would say, average or mediocre setters, which is what most of them are, honestly. If you got a rock star, they're not going to stay a setter for very long. Um, and then you've got this thing who's just is your wingman, I guess, in the DMs, just fielding these conversations. And I've tested it with my own, and some people can't even tell the difference between it and me.
Love it. This is amazing. There's so much good shit here, guys. And I'm gonna stop the recording in a minute and ask you another bunch of questions off camera. But just like, I also want to be respectful of your time. We've been yakking for more than an hour already. If people want to work with you, actually, let's
Yeah,
talk. People working with you, that's a different story. Before we have a work with you, have you created content? Have you created a program? Do you coach? Do you teach? Do you sell your
yeah.
expertise and knowledge as well as being a practitioner?
Yeah, so I mean, if anybody wants to get in touch with me, they can find me on Instagram at Wes Briggs Official.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, you can go to shortformselling.com and submit an application there. In terms of how we work with people, there's a variety of ways. We do have a done for you service where we set all this up, run the ads for you. It's a typical agency model there. Something that I'm launching very soon here that isn't quite off the ground yet, that'll be launching this month, is a hybrid offer. And so, where I found a lot of times agencies would create what are called golden handcuffs with people, in that it's like they're not really building IP in the business. And it's fine if you just want to outsource something, you have no desire to learn it yourself, then by all means, we can handle that. We can come in and we can do your lead gen and whatever for you. But if you want to learn how to do it yourself, where I found going through a lot of different coaching programs in the IM space, it was, all right, we're going to promise you a whole bunch, and then we're just going to slap you with a whole bunch of learning modules. And now you have to attend group calls. And most people don't do
We're
anything.
we're going to add tons of friction to the learning process so that when you fail, we have plausible deniability. basically.
Exactly. Yeah, here's 80 hours worth of content. Now, PFO, thanks for the 10K and best of luck. You have 64 hours now in your or you don't pay clause to watch 80 hours of content. So I hope you do it on 2.5 speed.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. And so anyways, this new offer we're launching is a hybrid offer where we'll come in, we set the whole thing up for you, work with you to get it launched and running, and then teach you how to run it. And so and then stay on to support and just help you troubleshoot it and learn it while it's running. If you think about it, you don't buy a truck to learn how engine compression and valve timing works. I don't give a shit about that. I want to know how to open the door, turn it on, and drive to the store to get my coffee and groceries, right? I don't need to know
How
how the
many
engine
cup
works.
holders does it have? That's what I
Exactly.
care about.
Yeah. And so that's how we've designed this system is it's very much like a franchise in that we're going to set it up for you and then we're going to teach you how to run it. And then there's all the documentation and whatever that if you need to make changes to it, you need to do it your own way, you'll have all that and you'll have us in your corner to support it. And so because we're able to do that, we're able to systematize the onboarding and the delivery and then also the support so that we can offer it at a fraction of the cost as done for you. And so you're getting done for you level application with a done DIY slash done with you pricing.
Okay. Man, I'm loving it. So shortformselling.com and at Wes Briggs Official on Instagram to find out more about how to work with you or how to learn from you.
Yeah. Yeah. You can send me a DM. We'll have a conversation.
Amazing. Wes, thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming and doing this conversation with me tonight. Any last words before I stop the recording?
No, this has been amazing, John. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Cheers.